Welcome back to the Quarry. This week you're about to read Genesis 12 through 29. 3 generations, 1 covenant, and a God who does not change his mind. As you go into this week's reading, I want you to watch for something very specific. Not just events, not just drama, not just family dysfunction, which there will be. Watch for how God continues to build covenant through imperfect people. If I had to give this entire week one title, it would be Covenant Under Construction, because what you're about to see is not polished faith. It's developing faith. And that should comfort you before you even turn the page. Let's prepare the ground. As you begin reading Genesis 12, I want you to pay attention to the foundation. God says to Abram, "Get thee out unto a land that I will shew thee." Notice what God does not give. He doesn't give a map. He doesn't give a timeline or an explanation, just a direction. So faith begins with movement before clarity is given. Then in Genesis 15, God says something very powerful. "Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward." Before God expands Abram's life, he introduces himself as protection and provision. And then comes the foundational verse of the entire week. "And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness." As you read, remember, righteousness was credited before performance. Belief is the foundation stone. Everything else this week builds on that. Now here's what I want you to watch for next. What happens when promise doesn't move fast enough? Genesis 16 shows us what delay exposes. Sarai gives Hagar to Abram. Ishmael is then born. Human intervention enters divine timing. As you read, ask yourself, where do I try to help God fulfill what he already promised me? Delay will always reveal what we trust. But here's the mercy. Even in detours, God still sees. The angel of the Lord finds Hagar. God hears her. Covenant does not mean perfection. It means preservation. Now, as you continue reading, you will see repetition. God repeats the covenant, changes Abram's name, changes Sarai's name. And why? Because identity shifts before fulfillment manifests. And then in Genesis 21, the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, at the set time. Underline that when you see it. There's a set time. Not early, not late, appointed. As you read this week, remember God's promises operate on appointment, not anxiety. And notice something else. After Isaac is born, Abraham still obeys. Obedience doesn't stop after fulfillment. That's covenant maturity. Now we reach the moment that changes everything. Genesis 22. God did tempt Abram. This is the testing of attachment. Take your son, your only son, whom you love. As you read this chapter, ask yourself, do I love the promise more than the promiser? Abraham says God will provide himself a lamb. That's prophetic language. And on that mountain, God reveals himself as Jehovah Jireh. The Lord will see to it. Watch carefully. The covenant expands after obedience. Thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. Testing strengthens inheritance. Now we shift. Sarah dies. The first land Abraham legally owns in Canaan is burial plot. Not a palace, not a kingdom, a grave. As you read, notice this. Faith sometimes purchases what it cannot yet inhabit. Then Genesis 24 shows divine placement. The servant prays. Before he finishes speaking, God answers. And the family says, "The thing proceedeth from the Lord." When something proceeds from the Lord, alignment follows. Rebecca says, "I will go." Covenant destiny still requires consent. Watch for that theme of placement. Now we enter the second generation. Isaac repeats his father's fear. "She is my sister," he says. Weakness can pass down, but so can blessing. Isaac sows in famine and reaps 100-fold. Then comes the wells, Esek, strife, Sitnah, hatred, Rehoboth, room. Before enlargement there is opposition. But eventually Isaac says, "For now the Lord hath made room for us." As you read, ask yourself, what well am I digging? And what opposition is shaping my expansion? Now the covenant shifts again. Jacob receives the blessing through deception. But listen carefully. Even through manipulation, Isaac declares, "Yea, and he shall be blessed." Covenant direction stands, but Jacob must leave. He sleeps with a stone for a pillow, alone, uncertain, and exiled. And this is the verse I want you to hold on to this week. "I am with thee. I will keep thee. I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken." That is covenant endurance. God binds himself to completion. Jacob sets up a pillar, he pours oil, and vows the 10th. Inherited faith becomes chosen faith. And then Jacob served 7 years, and they seemed unto him but a few days for the love he had. Love reframes labor. But covenant does not erase consequence. It refines character through it. As you go into this week's reading, here's what I want you to watch for. Foundation. Belief counted as righteousness. Delay. Promise under tension. Testing. Love revealed. Placement. The thing proceeding from the Lord. Opposition. Wells before room. And presence. I will not leave you. Genesis 12 through 29 is not a story about perfect people. It's a story about a faithful God building covenant across generations. Abraham learned provision, Isaac learned inheritance, and Jacob learned presence. And maybe this week that's your word, presence. I will not leave thee. He doesn't leave during delay. He doesn't leave during testing, and he doesn't leave during exile. Covenant is under construction, and if he spoke it, he will complete it. This is the Quarry. We begin with posture, we build on truth, we allow the word to shape us. Foundation, formation, and placement. I'll see you next week.